the science of introvert burnout. Welcome to my channel, Habit Compass. All right, let's just dive right in, because today we're looking at something a lot of us feel deep in our bones, but rarely have the actual scientific framework to understand. If you've ever felt completely, utterly wiped out after what was supposed to be a normal social gathering, the kind where you just want to stare at a blank wall for an hour afterwards, yeah, you're in the right place. In this video, we're unpacking the literal neurological mechanics of the social battery. We're moving way past the pop psychology buzzwords to look at what's actually happening inside your nervous system when you hit that wall of exhaustion. Why is it a hard biological reality and not just some quirky personality trait? Well, we're going to break down the mechanics step by step so you can finally make sense of your own cognitive energy.
There's this saying going around that honestly just hits the nail on the head. It goes, why 1 hour of socializing feels like running a marathon without leaving your chair. Now really notice the phrasing there. We are not talking about feeling a little sleepy or needing a quick cat nap. No, we're talking about a deep, systemic, physical exhaustion. This quote completely validates that very real, heavy sensation you get when your social energy is just gone. Because biologically speaking, it is a marathon. Your body and your brain are working incredibly hard. You're firing synapses, you're processing complex stimuli at a rapid-fire rate, even if you're just sitting perfectly still in a chair at a dinner party. Your internal systems are literally running a high-stakes race. So let's define exactly what is getting depleted during that invisible marathon.
You see the term social battery thrown around all the time online. Usually it's just an internet joke or a handy excuse to leave a party early, right? But we need to define the social battery properly. It is a biological capacity to process information and manage cognitive energy. It's a real, tangible system in your brain. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at how different brains process stimuli. Extroverts, for instance, tend to rely heavily on a quick-hit dopamine pathway. For them, socializing literally provides a hit of reward. But introverts, we often process external stimuli through a much longer, way more complex acetylcholine pathway. This specific pathway is linked to deep thinking, memory, reflection, the heavy lifting. And because that route is so much longer and intricate, every single conversation, every subtle facial expression you read, every bit of background noise, that is all heavy data your brain has to actively process. Your social battery is simply the finite amount of cognitive energy you have to fuel that complex pathway before the whole system needs to cool down.
And hey, real quick, it's absolutely crucial that we distinguish introversion from shyness. Introversion is an energy processing system. Shyness, on the other hand, is a social fear. These are completely different mechanisms. You can be a wildly outgoing, super confident introvert who loves talking to people, absolutely commands a room, and has zero social anxiety. But because your brain processes all that social information so deeply through that acetylcholine pathway we just talked about, your energy processing system is still inevitably going to get depleted. It's not about being afraid of the interaction at all. It is purely about how your biology manages and expends cognitive energy during that interaction. Simply put, shyness triggers a fear response, while introversion just dictates a limit on your cognitive load.
So, let's paint a picture. Imagine yourself getting ready for an event. You've had a great night's sleep, you're in an amazing mood, and your cognitive processing capacity is at its absolute peak. You are sitting at a cool 100%. Your nervous system is calm, resting comfortably in a parasympathetic state, no sensory backlog whatsoever. You are fully ready to engage, ready to listen, ready to drop some meaningful thoughts. Your internal energy reserves are completely topped off, which means your brain is fully prepared to handle the complex computations that social interaction demands. You open the door, step over the threshold, and walk right into the room.
Enter the catalyst. Let's say you join a group of just 5 people. Now, you aren't just hearing 5 voices. You are stepping into a highly dense sensory environment. Think about what your brain is suddenly tasked with doing right at that exact moment. You're tracking multiple narrative threads simultaneously. You're analyzing microexpressions, shifts in body language, subtle changes in tone. And at the exact same time, your brain is desperately working to filter out the background acoustics, right? The music playing, glasses clinking, someone laughing across the room. This isn't just a casual chat. This is a massive influx of sensory data. Your biological system suddenly kicks into overdrive, heavily taxing your cognitive load just to process all of this simultaneous input.
And as the complexity of that environment scales up, the processing power required scales exponentially. Your internal energy doesn't just slowly tick down minute by minute. No, it plummets. Your cognitive reserves are drained to 10% in a fraction of the time it would take if you were just talking one-on-one. The sheer physics of the social battery dictate that these high-density sensory environments pull massive amounts of cognitive energy just to keep up with the processing demands. Your brain is scrambling, desperately trying to categorize and store all this incoming data. but the buffer is getting full. You've essentially just sprinted that neurological marathon we talked about earlier, and your physiological reserves are rapidly hitting empty.
Which brings us to the visceral reality of hitting that 10% mark. Dizzy and leaning against a wall. And look, this isn't some dramatic exaggeration, it's a literal physiological response to cognitive overload. When your biological capacity to process information bottoms out, your nervous system actually starts to interpret all that excess stimuli as a threat. This overstimulation can trigger a mild stress response, complete with a lovely little spike in cortisol. That spike explains why your brain is essentially screaming at you that it cannot take in any more input. You might feel lightheaded, sort of detached, or even physically heavy, because your body is actively diverting resources. The ambient noise of the room suddenly becomes overwhelming, sharp, and disjointed. Your primary instinct is literally to find something solid to lean on or a quiet corner to retreat to, because your central nervous system is running on fumes. You have officially hit introvert burnout.
So, when your system flashes red like that, there is a specific biological protocol required to fix it. Step 1, leave the group. You have to immediately stop the influx of sensory data. Cut it off. Step 2, enter a quiet space. We're talking about a bedroom, an empty hallway, or even sitting in your parked car, somewhere completely isolated. Step 3, biologically process. Now listen, this isn't about being antisocial or hiding from your friends. This is about triage. You are giving your brain the zero-input environment it absolutely requires to sort through all the complex information it just gathered, cool down the neurological hardware, and initiate the recovery phase.
In that quiet space, those external demands are finally severed, and the vital recharge phase can actually begin. Now, recharging isn't instantaneous. I wish it was, but it's not. It is a slow, deliberate biological function. As you sit or lie down in silence, your parasympathetic nervous system, that's your rest and digest system, takes over, counteracting that earlier cortisol spike. Your brain desperately needs this isolated, low-stimulus downtime to organize the backlog of data and rebuild cognitive energy. It is actively repairing and filling the tank back up, step by step, which allows your heart rate to settle and your processing pathways to finally clear out.
And this leads us to the absolute most critical takeaway of this entire video. Please hear me on this. Quiet time is not a luxury. It is a strict biological necessity to process information. If you are an introvert, needing to suddenly leave a crowded room and sit in complete silence is not a personality flaw. It is definitely not you being rude. It is a scientific requirement for your specific brain to function properly and maintain equilibrium. You are simply honoring the physics of your own social battery by giving your biological system the exact environment it needs to process, recover, and eventually thrive again.
So I want to leave you with this question to reflect on. How do you manage your own social battery? Do you tend to ignore those early warning signs until you are completely dizzy, overstimulated, and totally exhausted? Or do you proactively step away, recognizing when your cognitive load is maxed out so you can biologically process? Understanding this complex mechanism is the first and frankly the most important step to honoring your own energy. If you learned something new, subscribe to the channel for building better habits through navigating Compass, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.